Hey guys, so you're ready for it. Today's March 1st, 2022, 3:33 a.m. Central Time. So I figured I'd finally do this video on Russia versus Ukraine, the war that is happening over there right now. I'll say this in the beginning. All of you know I rarely use YouTube anymore. However, although my channel looks small, my following is huge. So many of you know how to get a hold of me in other routes. Mainly this route, governmentsecrets007@gmail.com. You are welcome to email me there anytime you want. It just may take a bit to get to your email if a lot's going on, which is kind of what's happening right now. So I'm doing this quick video because that's mostly where most of you are sitting, is on YouTube, or at least have the YouTube capability to get to without having to create an account somewhere. Obviously, all of my material is on Patreon. That's why I don't do YouTube anymore. I don't get paid for YouTube. Period. End of story. That's just the way it goes. And fuck YouTube. So anyway, and I just like having like a secluded, like, I don't know, place where people can kind of open up and talk and chat on the side and stuff. Anyway, I will say this. I am not well versed by any means in Russia and Ukraine, European, any of this type of trash. I'm not. Militarily, I'm not. Okay? When I served, it was all based in the Middle East. A lot of you know my background for that. It really doesn't matter. It's not relevant to this area of the world. But the information that I'm seeing you guys send me and stuff regarding like New World Order, nuclear war, World War III, a lot of this stuff that people are rambling out of their mouths are it's one of those things where it's disturbing to a large degree because a lot of them do have large followers. A lot of people are very easily sucked into certain corners now, especially these days, on what they believe, who to believe, and who to trust. And that's very concerning. So I would request that you keep an open mind getting your information from anyone. Personally, where I get my information from is not the mainstream media. I do watch the mainstream media to see what they're talking about, and will laugh at them occasionally. I have been going on to Russian websites, not government websites, they're media websites. I've gone into Ukraine's independent reporters on the ground. I've done a lot of that type of stuff, is where I'm getting a lot of information, but mostly my opinion when it actually comes around to what's happening in Russia and Ukraine militarily, or how this is going to fall out, is based on conversations, lack of a better term, I'm having with former co-workers, if you will, from federal contractors that have now switched their work to this situation. So I actually thought for about 5 minutes in trying to get back into that world of federal contracting for intelligence, and then I was like, why would I do that? This administration's retarded. I want nothing to do with them. And then I came to my senses. But in the meantime, having conversations with them and things that I can see and that I am able to still see regarding clearances and stuff, regardless of whether I'm working or not. What I've come to a conclusion, okay, is this. Russia, Putin, it's cute. A lot of people are saying in the media and even Congress that Putin is not the same person he was. He's mentally unstable in some sort of way, okay? Fine, whatever, doesn't really matter. What he's done here, though, is of no surprise. When they took over, if over the last 4 administrations, he has invaded Ukraine 3 times. The only time he didn't do it was during Trump. There was no coincidence there. Beside the point. So this was a long time coming. Now, as far as the intelligence of this, literally brains, okay, of this administration is so painfully retarded that they actually took intelligence information that they had on Russia invading Ukraine before it happened and gave it to China and said, hey, help us, talk to Putin, tell him to calm down. Who, I would love to know, who in the IC, who in the administration, the executive cabinet, whoever, I would love to have been in that room when they were like, hey, let's give this to Xi and see what he does with it. I mean, how retarded do you have to be? And my biggest concern, being from the intelligence community, what the hell did you exactly hand over to them that they now know we have the certain capability of certain areas, certain satellites, certain, just everything, everything. Like, what did you give to them? As an American citizen, period, not even as someone who used to work in the area, what did you give to China? Because if you can give it to China, you can sure as hell give it to the United States, American people, okay? Because it must be unmotherfucking classified to a huge degree to be giving it to China. So please, Biden administration, let me see what you gave to China. Anyway, so then China turns around, gives it to Russia. Russia then obviously, probably, more likely than not, switched up their plans on how they were going to take on Ukraine. Now, I do not believe by any means, looking at the whole situation, that Russia had any idea they would get this amount of pushback by the Ukrainians as they are. And so these reports of like tanks running out of fuel, which was really funny because I saw a video of a guy, a Ukrainian that was in his car. He was recording it with his phone. He recorded a tank with 3 Russians outside of it, and they were just chilling outside the tank. And he's in his car, and he goes up, and he pauses his car and rolls down the window and says basically like, hey, you guys broke down, whatever the fuck. Russians said, we're out of fuel. He goes, oh, can I give you a ride back to Russia? They all laugh. He rolls up the window, and he, moves on. I mean, that's how... Couple things you can take from that. How silly this is, okay? That Russians are not there to off Ukrainians because obviously those military men were armed with other things than a tank that they could have taken out that civilian, okay? The fact this stuff's hitting social media to such a large degree, it seems like, I am personally not on social media hunting down things, but I have obviously been sent things by you guys, and it's crazy what's out there. This is probably the most broadcasted conflict, war, whatever you want to call it, in history, obviously, because of the internet and social media. So that little conversation, though, tells you a lot. Okay? So, and the thing is like, my next question to that was, where the fuck are their buddies? Like, why are they by themselves? Why are these 3 Russians hanging outside of an empty tank? Like, they're just hanging out, doing nothing. So, and there's a lot of things that have been happening at the UN. It's questionable what any of these governments are saying. One says this, the other one says this. The reporters on Fox say this, the MSNBC, CNN, Clapper, who else is coming out? Condoleezza Rice, what's the DNI from Trump's thing, Ratcliffe. I mean, everybody has their opinion on different networks. Then you go into Russia, and they are literally making it against the law and jail time to use the term invasion, invade, war, or anything of that nature in their reporting. And they are using it, which is why they are now pushing that idea. One independent reporter actually has been sentenced 10 years for using the term invasion, okay, in her reporting. So they are cracking down on that. And so that media is warped. Our media is warped. Ukraine is obviously going to try and warp the public's opinion on how well they are doing, okay? Which is fine, okay? It also boosts morale. Got news for you. So war is a sketchy situation, especially nowadays. We probably got more accurate information from like World War II that we're probably getting right now. Not saying that's true, that's just an opinion. But beside the point. A lot of people are wondering why Russia's not taking out their power grid. taking out power grid, water, all this stuff. It's simple. Russia, Putin's idea is to put a puppet government in Ukraine, right? Just like he did in the country above them. And they don't want to take out the infrastructure because they'd have to rebuild it. And especially a cyber situation, if they do a cyber attack on something, and I'm not familiar 100% with cyber shit, but I do know once you unleash something, it is hard to get it back. So whatever damage it does, it just does. So the last thing they want to do is do a bunch of damage to that financial institutions, those electric companies, electric grid, water supply, nuclear plants, anything, oil, gas supply, nothing. The last thing they want to do is damage that shit because they want it. Putin wants that country intact, okay? So they're trying to take it over with force and with as little force as possible, but with a lot of what I guess would say troop scare tactic, okay? Like, for example, what's happening to Kyiv right now. There is a huge convoy. Huge. Apparently a 40-mile convoy headed to Kyiv, okay? And they're pretty close. They're like, I don't know. I can't remember last time I heard. 20 miles out, I think. And the population, obviously, in Kyiv is like 3 million. A lot of people have left. Majority of people are underground. There are people that are above that are willing to fight, take up arms, and stuff like that. Great. Fucking phenomenal. I love that. When you're making Molotov cocktails and you used to be a brewery, I goddamn love you and want to be your best friend. Okay? But that's the thing. There still are millions of people in Kyiv, okay? And there are only a few thousand, even if there's 50,000 Russians about to hit that area. That's a lot of pushback, isn't it? And the fact that what Putin didn't anticipate were two things. One, the pushback the Ukrainians are giving, not just the military, but the people, but also from the globe, okay? Because like, for example, countries like Finland, Switzerland, Sweden are actually committing to send weapons to Ukraine for the Ukrainians. Okay, anti-tank, anti-missile type shit. And I would hope small arms of some sort, but they should have plenty of that. Those countries are neutral, have been neutral forever. So to see just those three countries alone do something like that is very big, okay? Then you take on, obviously, the larger powers that are sanctioning shit to death, that kind of make a difference, but kind of don't, but will in the long term, but really won't. They're carving out shit so that oil can still be traded around, and not putting those banks out of SWIFT, but rather the other banks that really don't fucking matter and shit like that. So, but I mean, there is a lot of pushback, and the reason, okay, this is the bigger reason why governments like Sweden, Finland, and all them, and I'll give you an example as Germany, but are pushing back on Russia verbally at the UN in their own countries, and by symbolic, as far as I'm concerned, sending weapons to Ukraine, because there's no way to get those weapons into Ukraine right now. In my opinion, there is no way, unless you have some sort of carrier that is, I don't even know where where they'd fly them in from. Poland, I guess, based on the location where they'd need the weapons. I mean, it's sketchy. They'd have to all be. These aircrafts would have to be followed by jets. Who would man them? What countries would it be? Because if they got shot down, then, obviously if the United States has a bunch of fighter jets following around this aircraft that's going to drop down anti-tank, anti-aircraft weapons of whichever sort they have, okay, where are they going to land it? Because the Russians did end up taking the airfield near Kyiv, okay? So where are they going to land it? Two, if the Russians decide to take out, shoot, whatever, one of those fighters, or even just the aircraft with the shit in it, name if the United States is following it, Poland's following it, UK is following it, France is following it, whoever is now in it, okay? So, and Ukraine does not have a solid airspace right now. It is considered contested, which is true. A lot of people say, oh, Russia's gotten, taken over Ukraine airspace. That's not true, okay, at this point, right now. 3:50 a.m. Central Time, March 1st, 2022. It is contested, okay? So the point is, those are a lot of symbolic shit. So I'll give you an example of another symbolic shit that was a big deal. Germany committing to send weapons to Ukraine. Why do I say that? It has nothing to do with the fact that they get their oil and energy and all that shit from Russia. It has to do with, why did they do it? They did it because of public pushback and pressure. Because if you haven't noticed, there are protests around the globe protesting this war, invasion, whatever you choose to call it, telling Russia to get fucked, okay? That are supporting Ukraine. So there's a lot of heavy pressure from the public, especially in the European countries, to do something. Because they're watching, a lot of people are seeing social media, everything posts, there was something said that Russia took out a kindergarten a couple days ago or yesterday or something, killed a bunch of kids. So of course a lot of people are going to be up in arms and say, you need to do something. So Germany actually decided to, or says they're going to send weapons, right? Wasn't many, actually, but beside the point. That alone violates, okay, no joke, violates German law for them to do that. They are not allowed via their constitution, their law, whatever the fuck, to send weapons to any conflict that they are not a part of, okay? So that's their situation. Yet they have committed to send these weapons to Ukraine. So you're seeing a lot of public pushback on these other governments, and that's my biggest concern. It really isn't Ukraine per se. I'll get that to a second. But when you stress people out, okay, and I said this on my Patreon account just recently when I gave them my take on Kyvi, which I'll give you here. When you stress people out, they do things they wouldn't normally do. Okay? I know that for a fact. Everybody should know that. That's obvious. You can stress someone out to a whole other degree. They turn into a different person and they will flip out or cave or whatever. That's stressors. Those types of behaviors cause problems in the world. Depending on the modality I needed to use when I interrogated people, I'd stress them to a degree until I got what I wanted or whatever the fuck that I needed their help with something, blah, blah. That's almost what's going on around the world. And I'll explain what I mean. Just like in Germany, the public pressured them so much to violate their own law. Okay? That's a big deal. Now, here in the United States, people are so divided, and it's actually quite interesting to watch, on whether to give a shit about this conflict or to see it in a bigger picture, like the World War III New Order nuclear war situation. And then there's people that are just following it, living their everyday lives. Okay, so as a country, we are very split. So looking interior to us to have any type of, prediction is a joke. But when you look into the European countries and just kind of pick at what they're doing, not just their government, but their people, is very interesting. This entire conflict, war, invasion, is causing such stress around the world with the public that it's getting more complicated than normal war would be, if that makes any sense. Putin was not expecting the pushback from Ukrainians. He was not expecting the pushback from the governments of the world. He was not expecting the pushback from the public of other countries, causing their governments to do shit they normally wouldn't do. So he's in a bit of a pickle right now. I honestly don't know what his thoughts are by any means. I don't know if he even has a motherfucking plan, okay? But the convoy that's headed to Kyiv, okay? There's one of two things that can happen here, in my opinion, okay? One, they're going to surround Kyiv, and they're just going to chill there. They're not going to do much. They're going to slowly close in and scare people to death, but they're going to try and squeeze that city into basically just a miserable life, okay? So they don't have food, they don't have, amenities, they don't have anything that they normally would have for normal life, right? And that's obviously where Zelensky's sitting. So they are going to wait and try and see if that city collapses on itself just by them surrounding it. And that's their hope. And like I said in my Patreon post, that's a risky route to go. Because of a couple things. With all the amount of pushback that Russia's getting from the global world, guaranteed there are NGOs, which are non-governmental organizations, okay? There are churches, they're religion crap, they're just UN people, whatever, that go around and feed people, okay? Whatever the fuck. Humanitarian assistance, okay? They go in and they do these things in all kinds of countries, right? So you're telling me an NGO goes up to that Russian line surrounding Kyiv to feed people, not give them weapons, give them food, that Russia's going to deny that convoy or that group of people, that NGO, from going in and feeding people? That's going to be the total question. Okay? And that's a simple scenario too. It's like if they say no to the NGO, well, fuck, Russia's about to get slammed a lot more, okay, for starving people. And then their life gets even more miserable. Or they let the NGO pass with goodwill or whatever the fuck you want to call it. And that country and that city will not collapse. Okay? So, and also if they don't allow that NGO to pass, what is that going to do to the Ukrainian people that are starving? It is going to band them further together when they find out that a humanitarian assistance was kept from them by the Russians. They will band together as starving human beings, and they will likely do something that is ugly, which is go out to that outer line where Russia is sitting, where those Russian tanks and weaponry and troops and whatever else Humvee bullshit they got surrounding Kyiv, in my scenario, okay? And they will start attacking them, because when people get hungry, they get irrational. When people get, if a bully pushes you far enough and you have the opportunity to stab the motherfucker, you're gonna try it, okay? So this whole situation is ugly. Or in the number 2 situation is that Putin lost his mind, who knows, whatever, and tells the troops to invade Kyiv, okay? And basically do like ground guerrilla warfare style shit. And the Ukrainians are up to their ass in different types of weaponry now, homemade and otherwise, and are willing to do stuff. So that would obviously not turn out well on a global stage either. So it's not going to ultimately get Putin what he wants. Neither one of my scenarios are going to get Putin what he wants. I think it's over. Putin has lost this war, this invasion. He will not get the country of Ukraine. by replacing Zelensky. Zelensky will not fall. Zelensky will, if anything, he will get knocked off by someone at some point during this conflict, later down the road, whatever. That's the only way Zelensky's going to get out of power, in my opinion. That's how this is going to go down. Putin just simply needs to pull his troops back and take over the small cities, small sections of Ukraine that he already has. Like there's some cities outside of Crimea that he's already taken over. Like, do that type of shit and just slowly take over the country rather than try and invade the motherfucker, take out the government, and then put in a puppet government all in like fucking 2 weeks. It's just not going to work because that's not how it felt. That's not how the chips fell. Okay? I don't know if he's going to do that or not. I have no idea. But that would be the logical route to go at this point. Because what he wants, he will not get. Simple. It's just logic. Simply will not happen. So, I highly doubt the guerrilla warfare situation will happen in Kyiv. I really, really doubt troops will be going directly into that city and knocking people off. I really doubt it. I really think they're just going to sit around Kyiv and just kind of chill and see what happens. And that could take quite some time to figure out how that goes down. But I could be wrong. Obviously, I could be wrong. I mean, I could be wrong right now. I could turn around and something could have happened between now and since the last time since the time I started this video. So, long story short, the Russians need to go home. Period. They either need to go on the ground or they need to go home and let this simmer out. Because Putin is not getting his ultimate goal. End of story. End of story. I guess that's really it. Truly. So either Russia go to fucking hell, or Russia, we're going to blow you away. That's all they got, okay? They're not getting Ukraine. Regarding Putin's commentary regarding nuclear war and stuff, gotten quite a bit of emails about that. That is not a concern of mine at all. Strategically or otherwise, I will say, based on conversations and everything else, just no. It's in logic, no. There's not going to be any nuclear war that is going to concern us here in the United States. Could there be nuclear war somewhere else? I guess if the guy really lost his shit, there could be potentially some sort of EMP situation. He's not going to nuke people. He's not. He will take out, the grid. If he really loses his shit, he will set off a nuke and ruin everybody's lives type of situation. He won't murder them with a nuclear weapon, in my opinion. But as far as us being concerned about it, I'm not concerned about it. And I guess if you are, congratulations. Put everything you own in a Faraday cage or go underground. I don't know what to tell you. And what else was someone's question? New World Order, I do not know much about regarding the books and everything, so I'm not going to even comment on that. Obviously, the Chinese are watching what's happening. They're going to invade Taiwan. In fact, I thought they were going to do that kind of first before Russia even did this, because Russia wasn't even on my radar to bother with Ukraine to this degree. Makes sense that Russia would go first and then China would go second. But it would be wise of China to sit back and not do it during this conflict at this point due to the public pushback Russia is getting from governments and the private sector. Wall Street hit back Russia. That was pretty funny. It would be wise of them not to do that because of that. Had this fell differently, it would have been an excellent time for China to invade Taiwan and have a two-front war situation going on for the United States and the world. But I don't think if Xi is smart, he will do that. He will wait till shit simmers down and time passes. Who knows? Who knows? And then try and take over Taiwan. That's a whole other ball game. And when that happens, I guess I'll do a video. But yes, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, all the retards, okay, of this globe do want to reset the powers, if that's what you people are talking about. They want to take the United States down a notch. They want to change the world powers. They do. So I don't know if that means what you guys are talking about as the Great Reset is that or not. Or if it's something much more in depth. I don't know. But absolutely, China wants to take out the United States as being number one power. And they very well might. I don't see how they won't, personally, over time. Not necessarily tomorrow. Because, I mean, Jesus Christ. Who owns our debt? Duh. How are we the world's superpower anyway if they own our debt? Like, that starts to get complicated. And I'm not going down that road. But if that's what you guys are talking about regarding the Great Reset, then yes, I agree. That's exactly what's attempting to happen here and may happen one day. If it's something more in depth, you'll have to send me some sort of link to the book or a video that doesn't sound absolutely retarded with someone trying to interpret the book, but rather, I don't know, some sort of like actual, like it would be a documentary type situation. Not so much someone saying, hey, I read this page, this is what it means. That would be great if you could send me something like that, if that's not what the Great Reset is. Anyway, that's enough of this. I talked for a little over 30 minutes, I think. This is Are You Ready For It? Take care, guys. Have a great morning.